The air inside Studio 33 at ABC's Manhattan headquarters felt different that Tuesday morning. Not bad. Not tense. Just different. Like the moment before lightning strikes when every hair on your body stands at attention but you don't yet know why. The crew moved with their usual efficiency, cameras gliding into position, makeup artists making final touchdowns on foreheads that would soon be glistening under the unforgiving heat of studio lights. The audience, a carefully selected mix of longtime fans and first-time visitors, settled into their seats with the kind of excited energy that comes from knowing you're about to witness something live, something unrehearsed, something real. But before we go any further, you need to do something for me. You need to subscribe to Prime Talk right now. Because what you're about to witness, what unfolded in that studio over the next 23 minutes, became the most viral moment in daytime television history. The clip would rack up 4 to 7 million views in 7 to 2 hours. It would split the internet down the middle. It would end careers and resurrect others. And if you don't hit that subscribe button, if you don't smash that like and drop a comment telling me you're here for this, you're going to miss the full breakdown of every angle, every reaction, every brutal second. Do it now. I'll wait. At the iconic table of The View, 5 chairs sat ready. 4 of them would be filled by the familiar faces America had grown to love, argue with, and occasionally throw metaphorical tomatoes at through their television screens. But it was the 5th chair, the guest chair positioned strategically at the end, that held everyone's attention. Because sitting in that chair in approximately 7 minutes would be Ana de Armas, Hollywood's Cuban-Spanish sensation, the woman who had transformed herself from a telenovela star into one of the most sought-after actresses in American cinema. Whoopi Goldberg glanced down at her notes one final time. Beside her, Joy Behar adjusted her glasses, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth as she prepared for what she assumed would be a standard celebrity interview. Sarah Haynes radiated her characteristic warmth, the kind of genuine friendliness that made guests feel immediately comfortable. And then there was Sunny Hostin. Sunny sat with perfect posture, her burgundy blazer immaculate, her hair swept back in a style that meant business. As the table's legal expert and often its moral compass, Sunny had built her reputation on asking the questions others shied away from. She had her own notes, research she had compiled herself. Because Sunny had thoughts about Ana de Armas. Thoughts about the roles she had chosen. Thoughts about what those choices meant. Thoughts about representation and responsibility. The cameras went live. Whoopi's introduction was characteristically warm, hitting all the right notes about Anna's impressive filmography, her stunning performance in her latest project. The audience applauded with genuine enthusiasm. Ana de Armas emerged from backstage, and it's important to understand something about this moment. She didn't just walk out. She commanded the space. 5'6" in heels, wearing a cream-colored suit that somehow managed to be both elegant and defiant, her dark hair falling in perfect waves past her shoulders, she moved with the confidence of someone who had survived rooms far more intimidating than this one. Her smile was dazzling, the kind that had launched 1,000 magazine covers. But behind it, behind those famous expressive eyes, there was something else. A wariness, a readiness. She had been through the press gauntlet before. She had faced questions about her accent, her background, her right to play certain roles. She had read the think pieces, the Twitter threads, the blog posts that dissected her casting choices with surgical precision. She knew that some people saw her as a trailblazer while others saw her as a traitor to authentic representation. But she was tired. God, she was tired. The interview began smoothly enough. Whoopi lobbed softball questions about the new film. Anna's answers were polished, practiced, delivered with just enough spontaneity to feel genuine. The audience laughed when they were supposed to laugh. Everything was going exactly according to script. Sarah asked about her preparation process. Anna leaned forward, her hands moving expressively as she described the research, the accent coaching, the psychological work. Her passion for the craft was evident, undeniable. Joy made a joke about Hollywood's tendency to cast beautiful women as supposedly ordinary characters, getting an easy laugh. There was a moment of levity, of connection. The producers in the control room relaxed slightly. This was going to be fine. And then Sunny spoke. Her voice cut through the comfortable atmosphere like a scalpel through silk. Anna, I want to ask you about something that's been a topic of conversation in the Latina community. The shift in the room was instantaneous. Anna's smile didn't disappear exactly, but it changed, hardened around the edges. Her posture, already good, became perfect. Her hands, which had been moving naturally, settled carefully in her lap. She knew what was coming. You've been incredibly successful in Hollywood, which is wonderful, Sunny continued, her tone still professional. But there's been discussion about some of your casting choices. Specifically, roles that were written as Latina characters where some people feel that your particular background doesn't fully represent the diverse experiences within the Latina community. How do you respond to those concerns? The audience went silent. Not the good kind of silent. The uncomfortable silent. The kind that happens when everyone realizes they're about to witness something they weren't expecting, something that might require them to choose sides. Whoopi's eyes widened fractionally. This wasn't on the approved question list. Sarah shifted in her seat. Joy opened her mouth, perhaps to redirect. But before anyone could intervene, Ana de Armas did something unexpected. She didn't smile. She didn't laugh it off. She didn't give the diplomatic answer her publicist would have desperately wanted. Instead, Ana de Armas went completely still and fixed Sunny Hostin with a look that would later be screenshot, memed, analyzed, and debated across every social media platform in existence. It wasn't anger exactly, though anger was certainly part of it. It wasn't hurt, though hurt was there too. It was something colder, something more dangerous. It was the look of someone who had finally decided she was done. "I'm sorry," Ana said, her accent somehow more pronounced now, each word carefully enunciated. "Can you repeat that question? Because I want to make absolutely sure I understand what you're asking me." Her voice was quiet, deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that precedes explosions. "With all due respect, Sunny," Ana began, and everyone who has ever been in an argument knows that when someone starts a sentence with all due respect, respect is the last thing about to be delivered. "I don't think you understand what you're actually asking me." The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. The audience collectively held its breath. In the control room, the director made a split-second decision that would later be dissected in media studies courses. Keep the cameras rolling. This was no longer a standard celebrity interview. This was television gold. This was the kind of unscripted moment that people would be talking about for years. Sunny's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Surprise maybe, or recognition that she had miscalculated something fundamental about the woman sitting across from her. "I think I understand perfectly well," she responded, her voice maintaining its professional tone though now with an edge that suggested she was ready for whatever came next. "I'm asking about accountability, about the responsibility that comes with representation, about whether you've considered how your choices affect the opportunities for other Latina actresses who might not have your advantages." The word advantages landed like a slap. Anna's face flushed, color rising in her cheeks, and for a moment it seemed like she might stand up, might walk off the set entirely. Her publicist certainly hoped she would. Walking off would be bad, would create headlines, but it could be managed, spun as emotional overwhelm, as a misunderstanding, as anything other than what was actually happening. But Anna didn't walk off. She leaned in. "My advantages," Anna repeated, her voice low and sharp as a blade. "Let me tell you about my advantages, Sunny. Let me tell you about the advantage of leaving my home when I was 18 years old with nothing but a suitcase and a dream that everyone told me was impossible. Let me tell you about the advantage of learning a new language, not once but 3 times, Spanish to English to the specific kind of English that Hollywood demands. Let me tell you about the advantage of being told in audition after audition that I was too exotic or not exotic enough, too Cuban or not Cuban enough, too pretty to be taken seriously but not pretty enough to be the ingenue." Whoopi raised her hand slightly, a gesture meant to slow things down, to bring the temperature in the room back down to manageable levels. But Anna was a runaway train now, and nothing was going to stop her momentum. "You want to talk about representation," Anna continued, her accent thickening with emotion, the words coming faster now. "You want to talk about responsibility? I have auditioned for roles written for white women and been told I'm not right. I have auditioned for roles written for Latina women and been told I'm not the right kind of Latina. I have been told I'm not Mexican enough for Mexican roles, not Puerto Rican enough for Puerto Rican roles, not American enough for American roles. I have been picked apart and analyzed and criticized by people who have never walked in my shoes, who have never had to prove themselves in 3 different languages, in 3 different countries, who have never had to smile and say thank you when directors compliment them on how well they speak English as if it's some kind of party trick." The audience was completely silent now, but it was a different kind of silence. This wasn't discomfort anymore. This was riveted attention. This was people realizing they were witnessing something raw and real and important. Phones were out throughout the studio audience, some recording, some frantically texting friends to turn on their televisions. On Twitter, the hashtag #TheView was already beginning to trend, though no one in the studio knew it yet. Sarah attempted to jump in, her voice gentle and measured. "Anna, I think what Sunny is trying to—" "No," Anna interrupted, holding up one hand, her eyes never leaving Sunny's face. "No, let her finish. Let her tell me exactly what kind of Latina I should be. Let her tell me which roles I'm allowed to accept and which ones I should turn down so that someone she deems more authentically Latina can have them. Please, Sunny. I'm listening. Tell me the rules." Sunny straightened in her chair, and there was something almost admirable about her refusal to be intimidated. She had started this, and she was going to finish it. "It's not about rules, Anna. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing that when you, a white-presenting Latina, take roles that could go to Afro-Latinas or Indigenous Latinas or darker-skinned Latinas who already have fewer opportunities, you're contributing to a system that privileges European features and lighter skin." The words white-presenting seemed to echo in the space. Anna's laugh was bitter, sharp-edged, completely devoid of humor. "White-presenting," she repeated. "That's interesting. Because in Cuba, I wasn't white enough. In Spain, I was too Cuban. In Mexico, I was too Spanish. And now, in America, I'm too white. So tell me, Sunny, at what point do I get to just be Anna? At what point do I get to be an actress who works hard and takes roles that interest her without having to justify my existence to people who see me as either too much or not enough?" Joy attempted to lighten the mood, making a comment about how complicated identity politics had become, how everyone was trying to figure out where they fit. But her words felt hollow, inadequate for the moment that was unfolding. This wasn't about politics anymore. This was personal. This was painful. This was two women, both accomplished, both intelligent, both passionate, standing on opposite sides of a divide that had been years in the making. Sunny wasn't backing down. "This isn't about your personal journey, Anna. This is about structural inequality in Hollywood. This is about the fact that Latinas with darker skin can't even get auditions for roles that you're being offered. And yes, that's not your fault personally, but when you accept those roles without acknowledging that privilege, you become part of the problem." The word problem detonated in the studio like a grenade. Anna's entire body went rigid, her fingers digging into the armrests of her chair so hard that her knuckles turned white. For 3 long seconds, she said nothing, just stared at Sunny with an intensity that made several audience members actually shift uncomfortably in their seats. The camera operator zoomed in slowly, capturing every micro-expression that flickered across Anna's face, the trembling of her jaw, the way her nostrils flared with each controlled breath, the dangerous glitter in her eyes that suggested tears were fighting with fury for dominance. "I'm part of the problem," Anna said finally, her voice barely above a whisper but somehow cutting through the studio with perfect clarity. "I'm part of the problem. Me. The girl who slept on couches in Madrid because she couldn't afford rent. The woman who did back-to-back auditions in Los Angeles while working as a waitress at night because her visa was about to expire. The actress who has been groped by producers, talked down to by directors, and told by casting agents that she should be grateful for whatever scraps they throw her way. I am the problem." Whoopi finally found her voice, trying to regain control of the rapidly derailing situation. "Ladies, I think we all need to take a breath here, Anne." "No, Whoopi," Anna cut her off, and the shock of interrupting Whoopi Goldberg, the shock of speaking over a woman who commanded universal respect in the industry, sent ripples through the audience. "No, I don't need to take a breath. I need to say this because I have been quiet for too long. I have smiled and nodded and given diplomatic answers for years while people like Sunny sit in their comfortable chairs and judge my choices, my career, my right to exist in this industry." Sunny's expression hardened. Her voice rose for the first time, losing some of that professional composure. "That's not fair, Anna. I've fought for representation my entire career. I've used my platform to elevate voices that don't get heard. Don't you dare suggest that I'm sitting comfortably while others struggle. I know struggle. I know what it's like to be judged for the color of my skin." "Do you?" Anna shot back, leaning forward now, her entire posture aggressive. "Do you really? Because from where I'm sitting, you seem pretty comfortable telling me how to live my life, how to make my choices, what roles I'm allowed to take based on some purity test that I didn't even know existed until just now. You talk about privilege. Sunny, but what about your privilege? The privilege of being born in America, of speaking English as your first language, of never having to wonder if your accent is too thick, if your syntax is wrong, If the words coming out of your mouth are making you sound stupid even though you're not, you're just translating in real time from a language that lives in your heart to a language that lives in your mouth. The audience gasped again, but this time there were murmurs, low conversations breaking out in the rows. Some people were nodding, agreeing with Anna. Others were shaking their heads, firmly on Sunny's side. The divide was happening in real time, the studio splitting into factions right there in front of the cameras. Joy tried again, her voice carrying the forced cheerfulness of someone desperately trying to defuse a bomb. I think what we're seeing here is two different perspectives on a very complex issue, and maybe we can. There's nothing complex about it, Sunny interrupted, and now her voice was raised too, her professional mask cracking to reveal genuine anger beneath. Either you care about equity and justice, or you care about your career. And it's clear which one Anna has chosen. The studio erupted. Not loudly, not with shouting, but with that collective intake of breath that happens when someone crosses a line that can't be uncrossed. Sarah actually put her hand to her mouth. Whoopi closed her eyes briefly, as if praying for patience or perhaps for the ability to rewind time. Joy's attempted joke died on her lips, and Ana de Armas stood up. She didn't storm off. She didn't throw her microphone. She simply stood, with a grace and dignity that somehow made the gesture more powerful than any dramatic exit could have been. She looked down at Sunny from her full height, and when she spoke, her voice was cold enough to freeze blood. You don't know anything about my choices, Sunny. You don't know the scripts I've turned down because they were exploitative. You don't know the roles I've fought for, the meetings I've taken with executives to advocate for better representation, the young Latina actresses I've mentored behind the scenes where there are no cameras to capture my good deeds. You don't know about the foundation I started in Cuba to help young girls pursue arts education. You don't know anything except what you've decided to believe about me based on your own biases and assumptions. Sunny stood too, matching Anna's energy, refusing to be intimidated. Then tell us, Anna. Tell us about all these wonderful things you're doing. Because all I see, all the Latina community sees, is another light-skinned actress taking roles from women who look like my daughter, like my sisters, like the women who don't get the opportunities you take without a second thought. The audience was fully engaged now, some people actually standing, some calling out in support of one woman or the other. A producer rushed onto the set, trying to signal for a commercial break, but Whoopi waved him off. This was too important, too raw, too real to interrupt. You keep saying that, Anna said, her voice shaking now with the full weight of her emotion. As if you know me. My mother cleaned houses, Sunny. My father fixed cars. I grew up in a country where I couldn't even speak freely about my dreams. I left everything I knew, everyone I loved, to pursue something everyone told me was impossible. And I did it. And now you want to take that away from me because I'm not the right shade. Sunny opened her mouth to respond, but Whoopi finally slammed her hand down on the table, the sharp crack of palm against wood echoing through the studio like a judge's gavel. Enough, she said, her voice carrying the weight of decades in the industry, decades of navigating exactly these kinds of minefields. We're going to commercial. Now. But it was too late. The damage was done. The moment was captured. And as the studio lights dimmed and the theme music swelled, Ana de Armas walked off the set with her head held high, her publicist rushing after her with a phone already pressed to her ear, no doubt fielding calls from every media outlet in the country. Sunny remained at the table, her chest heaving, her jaw set in a line that suggested she regretted nothing. The audience sat in stunned silence even as producers ushered them toward the exits. People clutched their phones, already uploading shaky footage to Twitter, to Instagram, to TikTok. Within minutes, the clips were everywhere. Within an hour, they were trending globally. Within 3 hours, every major news outlet was running think pieces with headlines that ranged from supportive to scathing. Ana de Armas destroys Sunny Hostin in epic takedown, screamed one entertainment blog, the accompanying photo a freeze frame of Anna's coldest stare. Sunny Hostin asks important questions about colorism, gets attacked, countered another, using a still of Sunny's passionate expression. The View turns into a battleground over Latino identity, reported a more neutral source, though even they couldn't resist including the most dramatic moments in their coverage. Social media exploded into warfare. Team Anna emerged immediately, flooding comment sections with defenses of her journey, her struggles, her right to work without constantly defending her ethnic credentials. They posted clips of her Spanish-language interviews, screenshots of articles about her charitable work, testimonials from fellow actors praising her advocacy behind the scenes. The hashtag #IStandWithAnna trended within 2 hours, accumulating over 300,000 tweets by evening. But Team Sunny came out swinging just as hard. They posted statistics about representation in Hollywood, charts showing the overwhelming preference for lighter-skinned Latino actors in leading roles, studies documenting the pay gap between white-presenting and darker-skinned Latinas in the industry. They shared stories from Afro-Latina actresses who had been passed over for roles, from indigenous actors who couldn't even get auditions, from casting directors who admitted they were told to find someone who looked more marketable, which everyone knew was code for European features. The hashtag #SunnyWasRight gained equal momentum, the discourse becoming increasingly heated as the day wore on. Think pieces proliferated like wildfire. Latina writers penned passionate essays about their own experiences with colorism, some defending Anna's right to work, others arguing that Sunny had asked questions that desperately needed asking. White liberals weighed in, often clumsily, trying to navigate conversations about identity politics that they didn't fully understand. Conservative commentators seized the moment to declare that this was what happened when the left ate itself, conveniently ignoring the deeper systemic issues at play. Celebrity reactions poured in. Some A-listers posted carefully worded statements supporting the need for nuanced conversations about representation. Others chose sides more explicitly. Rosario Dawson tweeted a thoughtful thread about her own experiences as an Afro-Latina actress. Gina Rodriguez posted a heart emoji on Anna's Instagram, which was immediately interpreted as taking a stance. America Ferrera shared an article about colorism without comment, letting the piece speak for itself. The views ratings for the episode, once the full broadcast aired, shattered records. 11 million people tuned in live. By the next morning, the full interview had been watched on YouTube 4 to 7 million times. Clips circulated endlessly, each one dissected frame by frame, every facial expression analyzed, every word choice debated. Late-night hosts devoted entire segments to the confrontation. Saturday Night Live fast-tracked a sketch for that weekend's episode. Anna's team went into crisis management mode, though their client refused to apologize. She released a statement through her publicist that was brief and uncompromising. "I stand by everything I said. I will not apologize for my journey, my work, or my identity. I hope this conversation continues, but I will not be participating in any further public discussions where my right to exist as I am is treated as debatable." Sunny, for her part, appeared on multiple news programs doubling down on her position. "I have nothing but respect for Anna's talent," she said in an interview with CNN. "But respect doesn't mean we can't have hard conversations about structural inequality. If she felt attacked, that wasn't my intention, but I won't apologize for asking questions that need to be asked." The Hollywood Reporter ran a cover story titled "The Confrontation That Changed the Conversation," featuring interviews with casting directors, producers, and actors on all sides of the debate. Variety published an investigation into casting practices that revealed uncomfortable truths about how colorism operated at every level of the industry. The conversation Anna and Sunny had started, however painfully, was forcing the entertainment world to examine itself in ways it had long avoided. But perhaps most significantly, the incident sparked conversations in living rooms across America and beyond. Families debated over dinner. Friends argued in group chats. Teachers used the clips in sociology classes. The confrontation had touched something raw and real, had exposed fault lines in how people thought about identity, privilege, struggle, and who gets to decide what authentic representation looks like. 3 weeks later, Ana de Armas would be announced as the lead in a project specifically created by and for Latina voices, with an Afro-Latina director and a writing team that reflected the diversity Sunny had advocated for. Whether this was coincidence or consequence remained unclear, but the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Sunny Hostin continued her work on The View, her ratings actually increasing in the aftermath, proving that audiences appreciated her willingness to ask difficult questions even when they made people uncomfortable. The two women never spoke again publicly about their confrontation. But the moment lived on, replayed and reanalyzed, a perfect encapsulation of the messy, complicated, necessary conversations about identity that America was finally, painfully, beginning to have. So now it's your turn. Who was right? Who was wrong? Was Sunny justified in her questions, or did she cross a line? Did Anna overreact, or was her response exactly what needed to be said? Drop your opinion in the comments right now. Tell us who you stand with and why. And subscribe to Prime Talk because we're bringing you more of these unfiltered, explosive moments that everyone will be talking about. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like, and let's keep this conversation going. Because this, right here, this is what happens when real meets real, and nobody backs down.